This was just reported on April 12th. It's about deputy gangs. Deputy gangs are allegedly plaguing sheriff's department for decades. Now, we already have known this, but this being a more recent report, this is what makes it more interesting for me. Let's get into this.
There's a different kind of gang problem in Los Angeles County. The people meant to serve and protect a population of more than 9 million people, allegedly part of powerful gangs going back decades, according to watchdog groups and the alleged victims of their crimes. Groups of LA sheriff deputies with threatening names like the Banditos, the Cavemen, the Executioners. The deputies rep their cliques, tattooing their bodies with logos.
That is, what you're seeing is real. For everyone who doesn't know about this, it's a real thing. Let me give you a little bit of a background about it. So, if you don't understand what you're dealing with, this, if you've never heard this before, I want you to listen closely. So this began a long time ago. You know, gangs within sheriff's departments and police departments, that is a long time standing thing in the US. But you know, it really started early on, well before the 50s, well before the 40s. But if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty in Los Angeles, and especially in California in general, you know, you had groups like the Little Devils. They were around in the 50s and 60s, and they were a group that were located within the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department. Now, the Little Devils, they would get little devil tattoos. They would wear like little devil signs, and they were mostly white officers who operated in Los Angeles, and they would target black citizens. It was very, very common. And then you had groups like the Linwood Vikings, who actually evolved out of the little Devils. The Linwood Vikings were located at Linwood Station. And then from the Linwood Vikings, you got all kinds of groups. You know, you got all kinds of splinter groups. But basically, the long and the short of it is, a lot of the Black Panther Party that you saw in Compton and in other parts of California, part of the reason why they even got started was because of the deputy gangs and the police gangs. So these police gangs, they behave no different than any other gang that you would find on the streets. They have their own colors, they have their own hand signals, they have their own signs, they get tattoos, and they even have initiations, whereas they will take the life of a citizen or brutalize a citizen or hurt a citizen, or if you're a female officer, you have to go and perform a favor in order to become a gang member. And then if you're not in a particular gang at a certain station in Los Angeles and across the country, depending on what gang that you belong to, you know, in law enforcement, you get the worst assignments and you don't get backup. That's how they enforce their numbers. That's how they force people to join. They force people to join these gangs within law enforcement through fear, through intimidation. And if you dare speak out against them, God help you. God help you. Seriously, it is that serious. It is that serious. Yeah. It's not a joke, man. Like it is that serious. Yeah. Yeah.
And throwing up gang signs. The gangs facing allegations they use violent, excessive force against Angelenos.
To me, they're punks. The people that killed my sons, that executed my sons.
And intimidate fellow deputies who don't play along.
Dead rats in front of people's homes.
The terrorizing behavior.
So that was something that actually happened to an officer. When she didn't join the Banditos, when she didn't want to go through initiation, someone left a deceased rodent at their home. There was one officer who spoke out against some of the harassment that the Banditos were taking, were putting some of the other female officers through, and someone left a deceased rodent in her car. or near her car because she was speaking out against the deputy gangs. Yeah, that's this. It gets deep, man. It gets deep.
Behavior costing the LA County taxpayers a fortune. The Inspector General's office counts $54 million in settlements involving deputy gang activity. The first obstacle to eradicating them, though, many past sheriffs dispute their very existence.
Well, you're still trying to pretend the deputy gang exists and work in the countryside, pillaging, plundering.
The investigation continues.
But the current sheriff, Robert Luna, who took office in late 2022, went public with his efforts to combat the problem.
We must eliminate deputy gangs.
A city and
Yeah, so the former sheriff, Alex Villanueva, he denied the very existence of deputy gangs. He said they don't even exist. He said that. Mind you, he is allegedly, at least allegedly, was a member of a deputy gang called the Cavemen. That's never been confirmed, though I do believe it. I would bet my life on it. He denied the very existence of this, despite all the evidence, despite all the federal lawsuits, despite all the citizens saying this for decades, despite other Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies coming out and saying, "Hey, this is real." This man still said they don't even exist. And the current sheriff says, "Of course they exist. I have the evidence. I know they exist." But the previous sheriff and other sheriffs before him denied their existence or would downplay it, or even if they were to admit to it, they would pretend like the deputy gangs were just were basically a social club. I've never seen a social club whereas if you don't join, someone's gonna leave a deceased rodent at your home. I have to admit, if there's any social club like that, please, I don't want to join you ever.
State-approved Civilian Oversight Commission released a 70-page report last year on how the sheriff's office should crack down on them. The commission's special counsel telling us they turned over a list of more than 20 recommendations. But so far, members of that oversight board, as well as attorneys for the victims, say Sheriff Luna hasn't put a stop to the gangs like he promised.
It's a lot bigger than one sheriff. It's sheriff after sheriff, administration after administration.
In a statement to NBC News, the LA Sheriff's Office say they've drafted a new law enforcement gang, clique, and subgroups policy, but that it's still under negotiation with the powerful deputies union.
We don't get it!
The powerful deputies union. So the current sheriff wants to bring change, but even if the sheriff wants to bring change, you have the LA City Council. You got them. You got the governor, the attorney general, and you even got the deputies union, police unions. So say you do get a good cop in there. And I do believe Luna to some degree, and I don't think Luna's perfect because I've seen for a fact he's not perfect. But the fact that he's at least willing to show face. He's at least willing to save face, right? And you're still getting resistance. That is interesting. Though I do think that Luna could try harder. I think that too. And I think that we got to be completely transparent about his past as well. You know, let's keep it a buck. He's no angel, as so many law enforcement officers would describe us, you know, as black people. He was no angel. But my thing is, it's just, if you're looking at this, in 2024, you have deputy gangs who run whole stations in this country. And the way that they enforce their power is that they intimidate other law enforcement officers, and those law enforcement officers all have firearms. If they can intimidate a law enforcement officer who has access to firearms and military gear, what do you think they're doing to citizens?